So, welcome and welcome back. It is Sunday, the 26th of May, 2024. We're time stamping it. My name is Laurel. This is a very powerful weekend, not just from like the solar flares that are popping off the sun, but the full moon energies are still hanging out with us. And in the States, it is Memorial Day weekend. So, we are offering our heart and our condolences and our compassion to all those veterans and the families who have sacrificed the ultimate to this country. So lots of love and compassion for all of that, and lots of love and compassion for you all who have made your way into this real-time experience of breathing yourself home, breathing yourself open, breathing yourself free. I acknowledge you for whatever you've done, whatever resistance you had to push through to get yourself here in real time. And those that may be listening later in the audio library, we're going to pause for just a moment and open our hearts to your hearts so that you also can feel welcome into this sacred space. Just as you are, we are in this together. And it's important to do this because 20, 30 minutes from now, when you're in your breath and your breath is trying to take you someplace new, you might lean into the wisdom and the safety of this container. For those that are here live and those that listen later, through space and time, we come together for the miracle and the mystery of what is emerging right through your center. Today's theme is letting go. And I started listening to this audio book. I ended up buying it because I was so moved by it. David Hawkins, who you may know from this book, Power versus Force, where he maps out consciousness through numbers, all the way from shame, I think, to enlightenment. And he gives them numbers and he says we need to be hanging out around the heart space and up. But in order to do that, we got to reconcile the heart space down. And in order to do that, I think he got into this letting go. How does one do it? We know mentally, intellectually, the idea of letting go is great. You just let go. But then you're like, well, how? How? What's the mechanism to do that? So we're going to get into the mechanism today. I'm going to speak a little bit and then I'm going to read about a page and a quarter from this book. And then we're going to get into the breath work part of this healing class. The playlist is 42 minutes, 11 songs. 3 of them are resting songs. There's always an invitation to make a primal scream about 2/3 of the way through this playlist. Y'all may remember all of the breath is in and out through the mouth, deep and full, into the belly, into the chest, and then letting go, in and out through the mouth. And I'll be guiding you along the way. And if the guidance isn't helpful, just stay with yourself, stay with yourself, stay with yourself. Your own wisdom is already here. If you can be present to yourself, it's more than enough. So, with the idea of letting go, you know, I really want to acknowledge that you're multidimensional, complex creatures in this reality. And maybe the concept of a Russian doll could be helpful, not 6 or 12 or 20 of them. I'm talking about maybe just imagining 3 of them for this conversation. 3 of these Russian dolls, and the smallest one, the one at the center, we could call it your ego. The middle one is the one that's in this class, the one that's listening to me, the one that can see me, the one that can feel their body. And then the big one, the third one, we'll call it just for this session. The biggest Russian doll that those 2 rest in is your high self, your source self, your sacred self. And we're meant to rest inside of the greater aspect, the greatest aspect that we could possibly imagine. And it's going to take your intuition. It's going to take your imagination to get you through this life. You may have found that the more you can be in your imagination and your intuition, your path can have more grace on it, but we don't necessarily operate that way. We're operating from that dense egoic personality construct who was birthed out of survival, out of fear of protecting itself from the environment when you were such a little being. And we've maintained that operating system and we've doubled down, we've tripled down on this egoic structure, the personality, the identity, and we move from that dense, most inward, most fearful, petulant, scared, toddlerish of an aspect of who we are, your ego. And we're not going to judge it. That's not what this is about. We just can't let it drive anymore. We can't let it drive you anymore. The idea is to take that, the fear that the ego may have about what you are becoming, who you are, shifting the operating system and letting that egoic structure rest inside of the one who can hear me right now, into your sacred center. And then the one who can hear me right now, I would encourage you to rest into the sacred holiness of this much more ethereal, spiritual, mystical part of you that is actually just as relevant as your ego construct. If you could release yourself more into the fullest sense of who you are, you will find grace there. You will find synchronicity there. You will find safety there. You will find wisdom there. It is part of your path, no matter where you are on your path. This is your soul is calling to you, your life is calling to you, but your ego is like, don't listen. No, too hard. Don't do that. Not enough. Too much. Let's stay safe. Let's stay here. Don't do it. So we are experiencing in this journey, this push pull. And I'm encouraging you, and David Hawkins is encouraging you to let go into the unknown because you're safe there too. You're kind of on cosmic rails. Like you can't fall off, even though the ego would have you think you can, that you're going to lose everything. And in one way you are, but it's the most beautiful way. It's the way in which the caterpillar dissolves into the goo and becomes the butterfly. Y'all know about that, the imaginal cells that get activated when you're in the goo phase. So that may be part of what you're experiencing. Yes, there are metaphors and yes, there are analogies, but the practical stuff is really relevant too. So it's all to support you, to help you remember and guide you through, especially when your times are hard and tight and icky and sticky. If we can remember to devote time to attune to ourselves and be in this kind of practice where you can lay down, where you can feel, where you can make some reconciliation with these different parts of you, these different aspects of you, and be in full acceptance of your experience, you might find that life will ease you forward in a much more kind and graceful way. That's my hope for you. What else do we want to say about that? Oh, yeah, this operating system. The idea of moving from the personhood to presence came up when I was thinking of y'all today. Moving from personhood to presence. It's like where you're shifting from identifying with the smallest personhood, that egoic identity structure of how you've moved through the world. You're shifting that focus. It's still here, but you're just shifting that focus from personhood to presence. And then you get to not only be experiencing what you're experiencing, but you get to be associated with the watcher of what you're experiencing and getting to realize that you are that awareness. You are that. And that's the real cool stuff. So let me get into a reading about the mechanism, right? How do we do it? How do we do it? I'm going to tell you how David Hawkins recommends we do it. So continue to arrive as you are, receiving yourself, getting your body comfortable, appreciating yourself where you're at today. And I'm going to read a page and a half of the mechanism of letting go, so you get some sense of what we're talking about. Letting go involves being aware of a feeling, letting it come up, staying with it, and letting it run its course without wanting to make it different or do anything about it. Okay, that's the task, to let the feeling come up, not trying to make it different and not trying to do anything about it. It means simply to let the feeling be there and to focus on letting out the energy behind it. Big time. This is it. Letting out the energy behind it, the energy behind the shame, the guilt, the fear, the sense of betrayal, the not enoughness, letting out the energy behind it. The first step is to allow yourself to have the feeling without resisting it, venting it, fearing it, condemning it, or moralizing about it. It means to drop judgment and to see that it is just a feeling. Your ego would have you think it's something, it's everything. This other part of you's got to come online and realize it's just a feeling. It's just what your body is feeling. The technique is to be with the feeling and surrender all efforts to modify it in any way. Let go of wanting to resist the feeling. It is resistance that keeps the feeling going. It's your resistance that perpetuates the feeling going, going, going. When you give up resisting or trying to modify the feeling, it will shift to the next feeling and be accompanied by a lighter sensation. A feeling that is not resisted will disappear as the energy behind it dissipates. As you begin the process, you will notice that you have fear and guilt over having feelings. There will be a resistance to the feelings in general. To let feelings come up, it is easier to let go of the reaction to having the feelings in the first place. A fear of fear itself is a prime example of this. Let go of the fear or guilt that you have about the feeling first, and then get into the feeling itself. That's the invitation in this practice. That's what the breath is trying to do for you, to get into the feeling itself, learning to trust yourself to feel it all the way through. When letting go, ignore all thoughts. Ignore all thoughts. Focus on the feeling itself, not on the thoughts. Thoughts are endless and self-reinforcing, and they only breed more thoughts. You know that to be true. Thoughts are merely rationalizations of the mind to try and explain the presence of the feeling. The real reason for the feeling is the accumulated pressure behind the feeling that is forcing it to come up in the moment. The thoughts or external events are only an excuse made up by your mind. As we become more familiar with letting go, it will be noticed that all negative feelings are associated with our basic fear related to survival, and that all feelings are merely survival programs that the mind believes are necessary. The letting go technique undoes the programs progressively. Through that process, the underlying motive behind the feelings becomes more and more apparent. I think this could be life altering. I hope at least some of this will sink in for you so that you can understand you have all the tools already necessary to take yourself through any of it, through any of what your mind thinks is daunting about opening up this can of grief or the sense of betrayal or that deep shame and self loathing and self hatred that we hardly even are willing to talk about. We all have it. Let's not pretend that we don't. Let's just support each other in releasing ourselves from it and then see what happens on the other side. That's the encouragement today, to feel whatever is emerging for you without judging it and to release the energy behind it. That's why when I say come out of the mind and into the body, it's so relevant, because the egoic personality identity construct lives in this mental realm, and it's not that helpful. It's not very safe. It's programmed for survival. Fear, 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 fear. The operating system that's going to serve you now in your journey ahead is in the center of your being. It's the heart energetic. It's intuitive, it's empathic, it's imaginative, and the mind can hardly make sense of it. So let's not bother. Let's just focus here in your center, in your heart energetic, and trust more yourself to take yourself through, to rest in the glory of your highest source self. So all of you can move to the next. Okay, that's plenty of talking. Let me do my time check. Fantastic. Do, 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 do. Okay, so if any of you want to put into the chat what you are working on, what this theme is triggering in you, I would love to hold it for you, an intention, what you're struggling with letting go. It's great to have it in there so we can support each other now and in the next 20 or 30 minutes as we're breathing. We can remember each other as we make our way through. So if you want to put in there what you're working on,